In this issue of Kayak Fish Video Magazine, we bring you Chad Hoover in a bikini. Plus, Morgan Promnitz on targeting La Jolla sea bass, and Jeff Little shows us how to jig lunkers from timber. Then, Life in the Pursuit of Fish brings us to Louisiana with Robert Field and the Florida Panhandle with Chris Funk. And hey, why barbecue that chicken when you can use it to catch a mess of blue cats?
Hey guys, I'm Chad Hoover with Kayak Bass and TV. I want to talk to you about, I don't want to know if I want to call it a trend or, just kind of it's a thing, okay? It kind of bugs me, and this isn't a sexist thing, okay? I love women. I especially love women in bikinis. But there's this alarming trend of fishermen. And I'm not saying that all women who fish in a bikini can't fish. There's several really accomplished anglers that have their captain's license, that wear a bikini, okay? That can, cast and fish and run a boat and do all of those things. But there's this new trend with social media where there's a lot of these clickbait pros. They're basically, they got a lot of followers, they get a lot of attention, so the companies, obviously get behind them. But you just look at their photos, and outside a good set of cleavage, they can't hold the rod right. They obviously don't know how to hold the fish right. And yes, there is a right way and a wrong way to hold a fish. And I'm not bashing people who are using their assets to their advantage. And I've just chosen to go a different route in my life. I could have wore a bikini and got a lot further, a lot faster in my fishing career. So the question I've got is, from the standpoint, from the viewpoint of the young ladies out there, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Their companies are obviously jumping on board because it gets a lot of attention. But as a company, are you really getting a return on your investment when the only reason people are clicking on an Instagram page or a Facebook page is because there's a girl in a bikini? Are they even aware of the product that's there? And this is called Not Right's Rants, and it's called, and I am on a rant. The thing for me that's frustrating is, like, you see the Hoo-Rag or the Buff or the different brands of face rags out there, and they got girls in bikinis with a face rag on. Like, really? Are you protecting this much skin? And then the whole rest of your body, what, is sunscreen okay? So, to me, it's frustrating because I think there's a lot of girls out there that are fishing hard to try to establish themselves as professionals. And then there's others that are holding the camera up, looking up, doing the down the shirt shot, or there's the GoPro from behind with the thong on. And there's some girls that I'm sure wear thongs and wear bikinis that can catch fish. But I just don't know if it's good for our sport. I don't know if it's good for the industry, and I don't know if it makes sense for companies to be jumping on this bandwagon. I'm definitely not opposed to bikinis. I just realized that if I want to look at bikinis, I'll go to a bikini website. I just don't know. I don't know. I don't know if this whole trend towards everything to get eyeballs on the target is working, because what are the eyeballs looking at? Are they looking at your product? Are they looking at the fishing? Are they even listening to what these young ladies have to say? Or is it just a quick, because if you look at the comments, it's all "you're beautiful," marriage proposals and all this. What's that got to do with fishing? Seriously.
We've had an excellent winter fishing for white sea bass. We've just gone through a great spring. We caught a few more, but now we're getting to the most exciting part of the year. It's summertime. As we transition from May into June, you're gonna see a lot of white sea bass moving up from that deeper water and starting to feed on finfish right up near the surface. So there's a couple of techniques that I really like to use at this time of the year as we move forward. I'd advise you try fly lining a mackerel, which means you just pin it right through the nostrils with about a 5/0 circle hook, and you let it swim around doing its natural thing. Fish it in about 100 to 120 feet of water. That's a good zone for sea bass and yellowtail that are foraging outside of the kelp beds. If you want to try in a little bit closer to the kelp, I usually try a Carolina rig. So what you're going to want to do is take about a 2 to 4 ounce sliding weight and then attach a swivel behind that to prevent the weight from coming off. In front of that, attach 6 feet of 40-pound fluorocarbon, and again, go with either a larger circle hook or J hook. Hook that mackerel through the nostrils and let him down about 20 to 40 feet. You don't have to fish very deep for these white sea bass at this time of year. You're going to want to concentrate in that top half of the water column. If you're looking for a setup to fish for white sea bass this summer, I like to use about a 7-foot rod that's rated medium to heavy. It's got some good action for pulling those sea bass out of the kelp. If you're looking for a good reel, I would advise something like this Daiwa Soltis 35H. Spool it up with 65-pound Power Pro braid. That's going to give you the ability to cut through the kelp if you need to. And then on top of that, I'll use about a 4 to 6 foot 40-pound leader and tie that to my iron or hook.
I realize that there's a lot of folks that don't know a whole lot about a Suwannee bass because, well, for one, they're only in a few river systems down in the panhandle of Florida, the Wassissa, Wakulla, over in the Suwannee, and in the Withlacoochee. Yes, it's a real place, and a bunch of other little small flows down in those areas, but they're isolated only to that panhandle region of Florida, and they don't get very large. I mean, the world record's are like 3 pounds 2 ounces, but man, they are fun to catch. They're a mean little old fish. They pull hard, and they're one of the most beautiful of the black bass species to me. Now, don't tell the shoal bass I said that. This first one that I catch, I mean, you know, he's not a giant Suwannee by any stretch, but he's the first one I ever caught on top water.
The frog! They are a gorgeous fish. He ate it up.
Right there after I caught my fish, Ethan ended up catching his first Suwannee ever, which was pretty awesome. I mean, anytime you have a brand new species and you catch the first one of, it's pretty special. But to top it off, he had a pretty good sized Suwannee, so you know that was a really good fish to start off with. One of the cooler catches of the day, we got blown into a patch of grass. The wind was whipping on us pretty good, and Ethan looked down and saw a bass sitting on the sand. Well, he reached back, swapped his rods out because he had his frog rod in his hand. So he grabbed his trickworm rod, put a cast on the fish. The first cast got blown off of him, so he quickly reeled in, put another cast on it, but he watched that fish eat and set the hook. So it was a sight fish, you know, on the sand. It was a pretty neat thing. He enjoyed it, and of course it was one of his first fish on camera, so he was just beside himself.
There he is. I watched him eat it too. It's a big fish. Well, he's not big, but he's decent. I got him on video. I got this joker on video. Oh yeah!
We paddled up to a deep hole, and that I know's got some limestone rocks down in it. He caught a Suwannee off one of those, and while I was getting the camera out to take his picture, I noticed my rod bowed down, and dadgummit if one hadn't eaten mine while it was just hanging off the side of the boat.
There you go.
Double. That's funny.
I threw the frog up in the grass and started pulling it back, and you can see in the video a little bit, you'll see the wake followed it. The wake followed it for probably a good 10 feet or so before I slowed it down, which is generally what I do to catch a bowfin. Well, as I slowed it down, fish hit when it run underneath the boat. I realized it was not a bowfin, so that was a good surprise.
Oh, sweet! Not a bowfin! Not a bowfin!
standing timber today, and there's standing timber like this. That's just a little piece that you can see, but there's also some of the better ones, the ones that I like fishing the most, are ones that you don't really see till you come up on, and they're out in deeper water. And those are the ones I like fishing, and I almost, you know, have a really steep angle where I'm fishing almost directly underneath the boat. Alright, there's a nice one, and I'm fishing with these brush jigs. The brush jigs go in and out of that wood because of that bristle guard really nicely. So I'll talk to you a little bit about the technique of how we're vertically jigging this standing timber. I'll let her go back. Where you at, didn't I? It's a battle stance craw as the trailer, and then this is a very sparse skirt that I put on the jig. I pour this on a Do It mold, and it's the mold that I use is the brush jig mold, and I think this one is a 3/4 ounce. I plopped it in there right next to the trunk, and I'm letting it free spool. I had to let a little bit more go. All right, now it's on bottom, then I engage. I thumbed it up to that point, and I was ready with taut line to feel the bite once it, you know, if there was a bite that happened on the way down there. Whoa! Oh, that's heavy. Oh, big jig. Bass. That was cool. Alright, so I can't tell you for sure that this was directly on standing timber. We got a little bit of a point coming out here, and there's standing timber on either side. I also can't tell you that it wasn't there. You gotta kind of guess sometimes. It's nice to be able to flip one right next to the trunk and follow it down, but sometimes you gotta sort of guess. But it was a rather steep angle of the line going down, and that made it so I could really feel the bite. Almost 8. Ooh. You tell me. I think it's just shy of 8. It's like 7:14, 7:15. That's the biggest one yet. All right. The brush jig did its job.
Fishing in South Louisiana is really unlike any other place that I've visited. The marsh, it's just so full of life.
These dolphins.
It's a place where us conventional anglers have to borrow techniques from our fly fishing counterparts. Blind casting all day is one approach, but it's the wrong one. To be successful out here, you have to be patient. A lot of looking, a lot of listening.
That was a red for sure.
The water's muddy, but if you know what you're looking for, the fish will reveal themselves in a variety of ways. And if you're not ready, you'll miss your shot.
Good shot.
The culture here differs from any other place that I've fished. It has this slow yet deliberate vibe. These people haven't forgotten where they came from. And for many of them, life revolves around the pursuit of fish.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Pharaoh Kitchen. If you remember back when we did our panko crusted citrus crappie fillets, I talked about one of our favorite potato recipes that I'd come back and get with y'all. This one takes a little bit of effort, but man is it worth it when it's done. These things are crispy, crunchy, but they also got the softness of a baked potato, and you can do them any way that you want. I'll show you a couple different flavor profiles that we like to work with. We've already boiled our taters for about 10 minutes and then let them cool back down. You need to let them cool back down because you're going to be handling them. This is the best way to do it. If they're hot, one trick that I can use when you go to mash them is using a wooden spoon. But honestly, the best thing in the world to do is just get nasty with it and use your bare hands. The first thing I want to do on my pan is put a little olive oil down. And I'm going to spread it all around. This is what's going to help the bottom crisp up on these. Alright, on top of olive oil, you're going to need your salt and pepper. We like a lemon seasoning and a dill, and then something like a provolone cheese or a Parmesan cheese type blend on top of them. That's one way we like them. The other way we like them is, of course, with bacon bits and a little bit of a cheese blend. So it's all in what you want the end flavor to be and how you want to deal with them. Doing them with seafood tonight, so it's going to be the lemon and dill for us. After you coated your pan with the olive oil, go ahead and lay out a few taters. And I'm telling you, the best thing to do is just take your bare hand and mash them flat. Alright, now that we've got them all mashed flat, any of this leftover olive oil is in the edges, we want to just kind of brush over. And if we need a little bit more, we'll drizzle a little bit more over the potatoes. You want a decent coating. That coating is what's going to allow these things to crisp up a little bit. Alright, now that you got your taters all lubed up, just get a little shot of salt and pepper to them. A little bit of that dill weed over the top. Of course, this is our lemon seasoning we like so much. And this is just a grated blend, you know, Parmesan, Asiago, whatever you got a hankering for. Alright, we're going to put these in the oven at 425 for about 20 minutes. Just keep your eye on them. When they start to brown around the edges, crisp up around the edges, they'll be ready because they're already cooked. Alright, you can see they're a little crispy around the edges. The cheese has started to brown pretty good. You want a real treat? Serve them with a little bit of sour cream. These are one of my family's favorites. Hopefully they'll become one of yours. Y'all take care.
Pump and reel. hump and just, oh, that's a big one. Big. Animals. And I'm gonna go ahead and show you the rig. There's my chunk of bird flesh, and I took a section of this 80-pound braid off the line, and on one end, I don't know, what is this, maybe 1.5 feet, 18 inches or so. One end I have an 8/0 circle hook, black nickel, and this one's nice because it's got that little, see that little notch. It's actually something, it's a feature that keeps your knot from going all the way into that little gap and jumping it. So that little, you see that little indentation there, that keeps the knot from rotating around and jumping the gap. So that's a nice one. Other side I have a barrel swivel. So all I'm doing at this point is running the line through there, and this is really just the last knot that I'm doing, and I'm tying that to the other end of the barrel swivel, and then I put the bait on. So the purpose of the barrel swivel here is when this weight brings everything down, it stops it there, such that when the fish starts moving with it, he's not going to move the weight itself, but there's some separation between the weight and the bait. But he'll start moving my line, and I'll feel him before he feels the weight of the weight. Just a reminder, in case you've not used a circle hook before, you don't actually hook set, you just start reeling. And then that hook goes right to the corner of their mouth, and that curved in point digs in, and they're hooked. I'm watching my tip, and it just bumped, and all I'm gonna do for this hook set is just start reeling. And I can feel it click into the side. Right. Big blue. Hi.